Hello and welcome to an interview with the special guest Cordovan.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Stefan. I really appreciate it.
And I hope you have enough time or a little bit time for some asks of Mordor and other asks that have people about PvMP and later time.
I will do my best. I can't promise that I'll be able to answer everything, but I'll do my best.
Great to hear that. And the first ask that I have to Mordor, I read them that the MORDOR for points, lotto points, come in December. Is that right?
I don't know that we've set a specific month for it, but we are planning to have it this winter. At the very least, we've said in our official frequently asked questions that it'll be after the release of Update 22. It's possible it'll be before then, so you'll just need to stay tuned. Ultimately, that decision's going to come from our e-commerce team in conversation with some other members of the team. So I don't know that I have an exact timetable for release to give you today, but yes, the plan is to do it this winter. So
Okay, because some people was not so happy about this topic because points in December or in winter. I know that because people love this game. I love the game too because 10 years is a big time. And yes,
yeah, it's possible it'll be before even this winter, but ultimately that's not something I can commit to at this point. It's really, but it is something that we have been discussing in terms of when it will be available to purchase with Lotro points. And so I would expect, in the coming months here to find out more about that.
cool. So, thank you and the team because Mordor was the successfully expansion since 10 years.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, Mordor has been. We're real happy with the way Mordor has been released, and of course, we have a never-ending task list of things to work on. But we're pretty happy with the way Mordor was released, and we've been hearing really some pretty positive comments from everyone else too. So, or at least a lot of folks in the community, and so that's always gratifying to read and hear.
Yes, some people say Mordor is a big and really good area. I have played Mordor. I was really enjoyed, and the epic story was so good and exciting. So that the new book, I think, comes good at the community here. And that was the way. What you have say about the new book? Why is the Black Book of Mordor special?
So when we wrapped up, the epic story as it currently stands with the fate of the One Ring and Sauron, we have some time historically in the books between that and the other parts of what people might consider to be the epic story, namely the Scouring of the Shire and some of the other things. And since we were in Mordor, it seemed like a great opportunity to start telling our own stories in Tolkien's world in a way that we really had not done previously. So the idea came to us, we were developing this large section of Mordor, and we wanted the players to be able to go into Mordor itself and explore it. I mean, if you think about the books, a lot of it takes place, with Frodo and Sam in Mount Doom, and a lot of it takes place at the Black Gate. but we knew that players wanted to actually go and explore Mordor, and we wanted them to be able to do that. So one of the best ways we were able to allow that to happen was to start creating our own story called the Black Book of Mordor, which really just asks the question, okay, so what happens then? You know, when there's a power vacuum in Mordor, what would happen in that scenario? And so that's one of the things that we've been able to start telling the story of in the Black Book of Mordor, and I think we'll be telling that for a little while to come here. We're not done with the epic story, you know, as we've said previously, but at least for now, we're going to be telling some of our own stories here, and this one makes a lot of sense to, given sort of the location of where we are in the game right now.
Yeah, that's a big issue, I know. So that is a good sound because Lotro and more time as other games, that is really great to see and hear that from development team or from you, Cordovan, from the community manager. So there is the Black Book, and the Black Book is really cool. I played it itself. It's really long and so much parts in this book. So there are many peoples can make more in the alliances. That was a cool thing what implement in the game. So what is your think or meaning from the alien system, and have you a plan for continue it or
Did you say the allegiance system in particular?
yes, the allegiance system?
Sure. Yeah, I think, you know, it made sense as a mechanic to use where we are in Mordor, and I think when an opportunity might present itself to do that kind of thing in the future, I think that might be something we'd be looking for. I'm pretty sure the specific allegiance system that players are experiencing in Mordor may end up being contained to Mordor, at least for now. But I would never say never on bringing it back and using it in other ways when it makes sense wherever we are questing in the future.
Yeah, and I was really exciting about the elegance because you can make all elegance to make all the quests, and so you can make daily quests, and that is a part that I love. And this elegant system was with the chapters in all of these parts of hobbits and elves, mans and dwarves. That is really cool develop. And so this question was a good point for me to make people sure that there's not all wars in the content in the later time. And so what kind of area or famous area was for you in Mordor?
I think the piece that was most exciting to me for Mordor was the story of Frodo and Sam and Gollum in Mount Doom. You know, that's one of the most iconic sections of the books, and being able to see that realized in game is kind of a, you know, one of the things that I have been most looking forward to, you know, really since Lotro's start. it's just such an iconic thing, and to hear about how the development team wanted to tackle it, and then to see the way it played out, overall, I'm real pleased with the way it turned out. So that's one of my most exciting areas. Otherwise, I do like the swamplands. I think they're very pretty in their own kind of
Yeah.
Mordory way. So I like that area too.
Also, jetzt so bin ich nicht
So the Mount of
rausgekommen.
Doom was my
Es tönt schon.
famous area too. So that was a really good thing was development in Lotro. Many people have a little bit angry about bucket quests in the German, or I haven't and back or bug from any quests in, so I have quested. So I know you have as a team difficult work for bugs and other things from development. So the character updates, that was a great idea to make it. So what was exactly the meaning from the character update? So from the races to make new hairs or other options.
I think it was really just responding to the desires of the community, and not just to offer new looks for existing characters, but to really bring our character models into 2017. Um, there's kind of been some long-standing things where it's like, if we had the chance to do it again, maybe we would make them look a little bit more like X. And so being able to do that with this character avatar update, is something we've long wanted to do, and the time was just right, and our ability to do it now is the right time to do it. So it's an ongoing process, and you're right that not everybody is always going to be happy with the way it turned out. One of the issues with any kind of aesthetic change is that you're going to have people who preferred the new look and people who preferred the old look, and they want to make sure that they get to look the way that they want to look. So that is why we had an option to preserve the old character look for those who wanted to do that. But I do think that we're not done as well. We'll be doing further iteration both on the existing new avatars, and then we'll be taking the community's feedback as we work on the other avatars in the future.
Yes, this character update, that's why not all loved it. I think some options are good and many or lesser than as the old. So that biggest ask that have people, it because the 64-bit client, and what is exactly about this time, was the 64-bit client in work, or you have an idea for that?
I haven't really heard an update on the progress of the 64-bit client since before we were getting ready to release Mordor, but I know that that is a top priority of our engineering team. We have one person in particular an engineering contractor who's long worked on Lotro, who is specifically targeted with bringing the 64-bit client into existence. And then that person is getting support from other engineers and other departments as necessary. I haven't really heard any progress update, though, in recent weeks, although part of that is that I have personally been quite busy in recent weeks. But I have not heard anything that is a red flag or any indication that progress isn't being made. So at this time, I really do think, things are looking pretty good in terms of getting the 64-bit client ready to release, but it is going to be some time yet before, people see it in the live game world.
Yeah. This is a good option for some people that have, I think, all 64-bit now in this time. And not all games have a 64-bit client. So that is an option for make the game sure or have other option for graphics. Have you that idea for that?
I don't think it's going to really make a big difference in terms of offering new graphics, in terms of new levels of detail or anything like that. But what it will largely do is make the game run more stable and improve game performance for people who are on computers that can take advantage of the benefits of 64-bit architecture. I'm thinking in particular multi-threading for processing and things like that, that some of it gets beyond my technical ability to really communicate to you. But I know that for numerous reasons, having a 64-bit client will benefit both the players and the development team in terms of our way to maintain and grow Lotro in the future. So, but I don't think we're going to see, say, new tiers of graphics above ultra high or something like that with 64-bit architecture. But what we are going to see is hopefully a much more stable and improved game experience with it.
Yes, that is a very difficult work on a 64-bit client, I think, in this part. So you have a long time to develop so a system, and yes.
I think the big challenge isn't so much getting the core Lotro engine to 64-bit architecture. We feel fairly confident that we're able to do that. It's that the game client over the years utilizes a bunch of third-party kind of programs, everything from physics engines to graphics population engines to various kind of communication engines and things like that. And being able to update all of those to 64 bits is probably, if there is going to be a roadblock, it'll be one of those, in that it won't support, say, a 64-bit architecture.
Okay. So I have played the beta in MORDOR expansion and have seen in the armor that you get in this testing gear. So you have tier 3 essences and armor. Is that in preview for instances that you have a new tier blend, or is that instant drop in a raid or things that come later in this update?
I don't know specifically about itemization and how that's going to work with the upcoming instances and raids. I'm not sure if we're building new gear or if we're going to be expanding additional tiers to what we brought with Mordor. That's a question I'd need to ask the development team that frankly I wasn't prepared to answer. But yes, we do have more content coming. We have a couple of instances that'll be coming next. The goal is to release that with update 21.2, and we have a raid in the works as well, and that'll be coming most likely with 21.3. So in the next, let's say 2-3 months, we're going to start seeing that stuff rolled out. And that will offer additional itemization and that sort of thing. But how that itemization relates to the existing itemization in Mordor, I'm not sure. Sorry.
No problem, Cordovan. And I read in the forum about the legendary item system that have write one of your team member that was a change on the next time for the legendary items. Is that right?
I believe so, yes. The latest word is the word on the forums there.
And for legendary items, so you have now the relics from Mordor, so that is a really good change in the time from West Emnet, from Hands Deep, and now in Mordor the new relics. That is a really big sorry, the words was.
I'm sorry, I think the end of your question may have been cut off there.
For the relics you have now in Mordor new, and it's a long time between the Hands Deep and Mordor time because the relics, and so now is a new tier that comes. What exactly for relics you have? Have you more relics in the later time that get, or is there no relics that come for more?
That's a great question. So we're definitely not done with new relics. I don't know what our timetable is to release them, but we definitely got some pretty positive feedback on the relics in Mordor, and I do think that we'll be offering some additional stuff there in the future. Again, though, I just don't know exactly the when of it. I don't think it'll take as long as the difference between Helm's Deep and Mordor, though.
Yes, this is that was wondered of so many people. So with Mordor comes the new race High Elf. What exactly you have think about in High Elf? And the High Elf is a have new race traits or race items, or what difficult in this part you have a new race bonus. What exactly you have all in this High Elf?
So yeah, I mean the High Elf. When we decided we wanted to bring a new race to the game with Mordor, we'd long wanted to do the High Elf, and it made the most sense for us to bring that out with Mordor. As you said, it does have, say, some new new stats and benefits and things like that. Ultimately, that was up to the content development team and the systems development team to come up with the various stat bonuses and that sort of thing. And we also did want to make sure that they differentiated themselves from the regular elves that we had in the game. One way in particular was to allow them to be, say, captains, that kind of thing. So we offer a mix of gameplay and lore and graphics when we work to bring out a new race, and that was what we did with the High Elf there.
Yeah, I have played the High Elf on the beta. I was really excited about the new race, and I've seen an emote dance 3 because other kind of dance that was in the High Elf. So that is really funny about so you think you have an ballerina dance in the game.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We actually did scale that back though from beta. Initially it was released in beta in a incomplete state that made for some pretty amusing videos, but we did scale that back somewhat.
Okay. So that was a really good thing with the dance. I have lots of fun with this dance. So,
Okay.
what is with skirmishes? That is a long time that was the skirmishes in the game, and I have played a lot of skirmishes in the earlier time, and that was a best chance to get
Hallo.
medals and other things in this skirmishes.
Ich
So,
hab nur gerade,
is there a
wurde
plan
gerade
to
schnell
change
jetzt ist
the
er so
lesser
zu
medals
überzeugt
or
an mir.
have
Guck mal, siehst du
more
das gerade?
medal for the skirmishes? And
Das ist, der ist,
Also
is
er
there
liegt
a
ganz
new
einfach
tier
neben
that
dir,
come,
steht
or
da, ne?
ja,
is it belief on 3 tiers in the skirmish system?
Das macht
I don't think that there's going to be a new meta game for skirmishes, if I understood your question correctly. I do think that we are going to be having some new skirmishes at some point here in the future, but we'll just kind of have to stay tuned to talk about how they work and what they offer as we get closer to them.
Oder
Okay, so what is so you have a lot of class points in this time for get it for leveling and class traits, beats and some book quests. So is that tranche skill tree or talents come in future for skilling new skills or other things?
Das ist, hat ein Jahr Ring.
Or
are you talking about hobbies?
about class points for the skill trees. So you have some skill trees, so 3 skill trees have for, you know what I mean, for all classes, so skill tree, and for skill tree, so you have a much of skill points for the skill trees, and the actually points is 88, so I right, and so have you a plan for advanced system for skill tree or come talents in the later time?
Stefan.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think we have plans to add additional class skill points. You know, at some point we have a system in place that has certain caps on it and things like that. I would imagine that that's always something we're looking to, you know, expand on and improve on, but I have not heard of specific, say, new ways to get class skill points, if that's what you're asking.
Yes. So many people that have asked me for Lotro on Gamescom, that was in the earliest time of develop, so I heard the Codemaster time was on Gamescom with Lotro. Is there be a plan to make a Gamescom special for Lotro, or is it really difficult to travel to Germany?
Yeah, you know, we get that fairly regularly, not just with Gamescom, but with some of the larger conventions in the United States as well, like the Penny Arcade Expo, or PAX as it's called. Additionally, like Gen Con, which just took place last week, and I attended in a kind of an unofficial way. There is a fairly significant cost, not just to travel to Gamescom, but then also to have an official presence there on the show floor. And at this point, we've opted to spend our available dollars in different ways, largely in the development of Mordor and in the development of the game, human resources and things like that, as opposed to, say, conventions. Conventions are expensive, and ultimately you have to make a decision whether or not you're going to get a return on that investment. So I would never say never on Gamescom. I mean, certainly we'd love to do it. I just don't know that it's something that is likely to happen for Lotro specifically in the next couple of years.
Yes, that's right, because the
Du weißt doch.
conventions and Gamescom
Kannst du ihm nicht
is not the
sagen,
travel,
dass er
because you have
nachladen soll oder so,
so
was
much expensive prices
ins
for
Häuschen
the
geht und dann stricht
cost
er
of
ab.
the area that you meet in this time. And
Oh Mann.
so that was the question about the Gamescom from the people that asked me that. And so the PVMP update was with Mordor, and
Aber nur
really
für 6 Stunden.
good point is that the
Geh mit ihm ins
creeps
Westdorf.
was a little bit scaled on level 115 and
Ich bin
more
jetzt,
moral.
runter, ne?
So,
Ja.
but the really difficult ask is, why is now a finest rating for an corruption and in the game? Because you have all corruptions in planned out
Ja,
and have
wenn
no
schon wieder gestochen
Inventar
worden,
or
das tut weh.
slot for skilled that corruption's finest, and so you must be all parts and change all corruptions. And why is the plan
Wieso jucken
to
mir
make
Knieschnitten
finest
so?
in the corruption fields?
That would be a question more for our developer Vastin, who was tasked fairly late in the Mordor process to carve out extra time to deal with PVMP. Initially, we had a fairly light amount of work planned for PVMP for Mordor, but it became clear as we were leveling, preparing the level increase to 115 and just hearing the community feedback from the PVMP community that we really had some work we needed to do to not just scale things up to 115, but to work on balance for Mordor. And we tried to do that. We had Vastin along with, mostly him, but some other people too. But mostly him, really tasked with trying to get PVMP in a decent state for Mordor. But that said, it also became pretty clear that the amount of work that was being asked for by the community was not something that we actually had time to do in time for Mordor. So we had to kind of pick and choose our battles and find a way to do that scaling in a way that was more sustainable, not just for Mordor, but in the future. And my understanding is that Vastin chose finesse as a way to provide that granular scaling in a way that we could sustain and improve on in the future. I know not everyone agrees with that decision, and I appreciate that. So I think that the best thing I could say in regard to why finesse was, it was a deliberate decision made to try to allow for scaling and balance of PVMP as we went up to level 115 and beyond. But I also know that we're not done with PVMP balance. When we shipped Mordor at the end of July, it was clear that we had some outliers with wargs and just some other outliers in general, that we didn't quite hit the level of balance on PVMP that we would like to have going forward. So whether it's update 21.2 or update 21.3 is a little too early to say at this point, but we are going to be doing some additional PVMP balance work, some creep balance work in particular, along with adding some Audacity gear in the near future here too, to hopefully provide some of that balance that the PVMP community is looking for. And now would be a great time to offer some constructive feedback on Finesse to help us better understand what you would like us to do in regard to it. And that feedback can be provided to us on the forums, in particular the PVMP forums. If you are the kind of person who likes to get into the systems of it, please provide us that level of feedback so we can get some good direction going forward.
Yes, the PVMP is hard work for make a balance. That's right, and so many people have said that Geld with the keeps of Lugasak and so the general champions, or that was the MPTs was a little bit too high for creeps. So why is the change so high for make NPCs moral to 6 million and 8 million? So that was the exactly because the creeps can make a little bit DPS. The DPS is a little bit lesser as for other updates, because so you need finesse, and the problem is the most people are standalone players. So what is the idea to make players for more group content in the Moors?
I think at this point we really are going to be focusing on overall creep versus freak balance and doing the remaining work that needs to be done, say with Audacity gear and, you know, outstanding bugs on PVMP before we would take a look at some of that sort of thing. You know, we want to get PVMP in a competitive state that we can sustain long term, and that's not an easy task to do. It has never been an easy task, and as soon as we feel like maybe we're close, it tends to not last. So one of the things we're hoping to do is provide that balance in the near future, deal with some of the bugs that have an outlying sort of issues that we have, work on creep balance and Audacity gear, and I think all that is going to take up our time before we would say work on individual versus group content in PVMP.
Yeah, that is good to hear that. And I have play more PVMP in the last time that I not streaming, and so I have make the a difficult way to make a group in some servers, because some servers are a little bit to make more in the area of Mordor. That is really exciting for play in Mordor, so that players come in the late time to the Moors. So I have in the yesterday I was in the PVMP, so I checked it for some points of creeps that come in the Moors, so that I have a video seen what was on YouTube for players that I don't know what they used, and that was a Beon. You know, you have a much change of Beon skills, so I really angry about the healing of this Bayon, because in the Bayon here, so in the Moors, so many peoples that you can heal all about in group or not in the group. So what is change? Have you a change for heal for group or heal for all that was in this area? So you have a maximum rate for this heal, because I have tested a little bit with the heal. So the heal is really
Aber
big
was sagt
to
das?
make
Ich find's dann,
all
hast du
classes
eine
or
Lücke
players that
auf der Hand und
in
sagst
a
nicht
group,
zu, wie sie dich
so
strecken
all
will,
on the high moral.
und im
So
richtigen Moment haust
that
auf
was
sie drauf.
in a PvMP group. That was so the Bayon
So
here.
let me stop you real quick if I could. So in particular, are you saying that the amount of healing on the Freep side is so high that it's causing an imbalance
Yes.
and make it difficult for creeps to go basically mitigate that group healing?
Naja.
Yes, the group heal in the creep side. So you have the Defiler that have one skill.
Okay. So
One
what you're
skill
saying is
for
not so much that the healing is outbalanced on the Freep side, but the healing is too high on the creep side, and that is in addition to some other issues like, say, with the warg and that sort of thing, causing too much of an imbalance in PvMP.
So yes, that's why. And the minspell here is enough now in the Moor, so I say. And the Bayon here is really high. That problem is you have a group. So in the Moors, so 2 people versus 2 people. So that the D class and the heal class. So the Bayon heals all buffs again, because you have a lot of poison, or I don't know the right so
Sure. It does sound like, you know, one of the pieces we are going to be looking at is creep balance, and it sounds like healing in the Moors is going to have to be part of that balance work for sure.
yes, so that I think all quests are finished in my box, and so I haven't so much quests. And I thinking we can make another interview in the later time. So I thanks for joining today, Cordovan, for the interview, and that was really interesting to hear all things of the development team and of you. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stifal. I appreciate being able to take a crack at answering all the questions that you were able to present me, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Bye and have a nice weekend.
Yep, have fun.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me.